All right, so thank you very much and good morning to everyone. My name is Vando Palmer and I will be spearheading or leading the proceedings here this morning as we are pleased that Jamaica is going to be launching the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor. We do so specifically against the background of Target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Plan, our goal, which is really to take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor. And that includes the recruitment and the use of child soldiers, and to end child labor in all its forms. And we have a very short deadline to do so, that is 2025. I'm also pleased to let you know that the ministry continues to collaborate or to liaise with local and international stakeholders to provide a caring and supporting environment to prevent our children from being abused. Among these stakeholders or partners are the United States Department of Labor, USDOL, as well as the International Labor Organization, the ILO, and of course, UNICEF. Ladies and gentlemen, may I also tell you that the ministry has already developed the National Action Plan to eliminate child labor, and this was developed through rigorous and consistent consultations with all our stakeholders across the 14 parishes of Jamaica. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, may I now introduce you to the panel that we have lined up for you today as we do this launch. We have none other than our own Minister of Labor and Social Security, the Honorable Carl Samuda. We also have with us Mariko Kagoshima, who's a country representative from UNICEF. We have Mr. David Wan, who's the president of Jamaica Employers Federation. Mrs. Helene Davis White, the president of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions. And we also have with us Ms. Aisha Graham McIntosh, who is a member of Statin. Well, she's representing Statin, but she's also a member of the National Steering Committee on the development of child labor. And of course, we also have Ms. Inka Perkins, and she is one of the administrators here at the Ministry of Labor. And we also have Ms. Jillian Korodos, who is a divisional director of IR and Allied Services here at the Ministry of Labor. So may I now just apologize for the absence of our permanent secretary, Mrs. Colette Roberts-Risden, who is unavoidably here today. She would very much love to have been here, but she's not able to be here. She sends her love and greetings, as well as her good wishes for us to have a very successful launch here today. May I now ask Ms. Marsha Natalie Martin to do prayers for us, please. Is Marsha there?
I am here. Bless you. Good morning, friends. I now invite us to bend our spirits as we go to God in prayer. Let us pray. Almighty God, we're grateful for your love, for your grace, for your mercy. We thank you for this new day. We thank you for calling us into right partnership with you as we seek to work to eliminate child labor. Sovereign Lord, Help us that we may not grow weary. And when we are tempted to be daunted, Almighty God, lift us up and give us the grace to finish the race so that generations after us, my God, will look to thee with thanks, will count us faithful, and will not have to battle with these issues, because truly it would have been well, and they would have lived to see that fullness of life you promised in Christ Jesus. So give us grace now, God. Bless the proceedings in this launch and grant us the grace that hereinafter we'll continue to partner with you for your glory and for your honor. Through Christ our Lord we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Marsha. And now we will turn our attention to our national prayer, which is the national anthem of Jamaica. May we stand for the national anthem, please. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And may I just quickly apologize to Mr. Dennis Zulu, the Director for ILO Decent Work Teams and Offices for the Caribbean. I missed out on introducing him earlier, but I am going to bring him to you now so that he can bring you greetings, and he will be followed by Ms. Marika Kagoshima, the country representative for UNICEF. So Dennis, over to you.
Thank you so much, no problem. Honorable Minister Kalsamunda, it's a pleasure once again. Mrs. White, President of Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, Mr. David Wong, the President of Jamaica Employers Confederation, my colleague Mariko from UNICEF, Ms. Gillian Cordes, Divisional Director, Ms. Alicia Graham McIntosh, and Ms. Ilka Pickens, fellow panelists. Indeed, for us, it's a very important occasion today, given that we are meeting here to commemorate this very important and the launch of this very important day. The importance of regulating the participation of children and teenagers in the world of work and protecting them from exploitation and other threats to their well-being has from the earliest days with ILO been one of the fundamental concerns of member states in pursuit of social justice. The 1973 ILO Convention 138 on the minimum age for entry into work replaced previous ones that had been applicable to limited economic sectors. And in 1999, the entry into force of Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor marked another milestone as countries persistently advanced the cause towards the ultimate objective of achieving the total abolition of child labor. That child labor continues to be a priority at global and national levels is evident in Target 8.7 of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which empowers the commitments to take immediate and effective measures to secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, including recruitment and use of child soldiers, and by 2025 end child labor in all its forms. This is a critical indicator for the achievement of SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, which places decent work at the very heart of global vision for sustainable development. The international program on the elimination of child labor and forced labor, initially started in 1992, has been a global flagship in the fight to end child labor over the years. In the last 2 decades, we have partnered with tripartite constituents, civil society actors, the media, academia, and other UN international agencies, of course, children themselves and their families in over 88 countries. And during this time, our combined efforts up to 2016 led to the removal of almost 94 million children worldwide from situations of child labor. Significantly, the establishment of the Regional Initiative for Latin America and the Caribbean free of child labor in 2014, to which Jamaica is one of the original signatories, was a game changer. Its mandate to accelerate the rate of reduction of child labor and the commitment of partners to action led to this region having the lowest levels of child labor compared to other regions in the world. However, in the current context of the COVID-19 crisis, has added yet another dramatic plot to the twist. In 2020, the ILO and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, jointly warned of the looming threat to the pandemic that would reverse years of progress in the elimination of child labor. Yesterday, with the unveiling of the 5th edition of the Global Estimates on Child Labor, our worst fears were indeed confirmed, and for the first time in 2 decades, we've lost ground in this war against child labor. We now know that over the last 4 years, the number of children in child labor has risen to 160 million worldwide, an increase of 8.4 million children since 2016. In real terms, this means that today, 1 child out of every 10 children is in child labor. Of that 160 million, 79 million boys and girls, or almost 50% of child laborers, are involved in hazardous forms of labor. And just as alarming is the fact that children or child labor among 5 to 11-year-olds, which is the younger cohort, went up to 16.8 million. Based on the trends observed prior to the pandemic and other recent simulations which take into account the poverty crisis, the poverty effects of the crisis, child labor is predicted to be or to rise by a further 8.9 million by the end of 2022. Hence, the call to act is now to end child labor. But despite this sobering revelation, new estimates still offer some encouragement. Records show that over the last 4 years, child labor in Latin America and the Caribbean decreased by 2.3 million in number and 1.3 percentage points in prevalence. With the target of 2025 in sight, the ILO Caribbean Office and the Secretariat of the Regional Initiative remains committed to supporting Jamaica's ongoing efforts to eliminate child labor and to progressively address, through our take on interventions and advocacy, the various social and economic factors for child labor. So on this occasion, which marks the launch of Jamaica's campaign for the International Year and observance of the annual World Day Against Child Labor, the ILO, for its part, pledges to continue to work with the ministry and national constituents to take on an integrated approach to preventing and eliminating child labor in Jamaica. One that seeks to enhance the social protection frameworks, to improve the efficiency of labor inspections, the enforcement of national laws, and to reduce informality in the labor market, and to undertake research and analyze data so that we can extract useful information for better policies and programs that protect children, adolescents, and ensure decent work for all sustainable livelihoods. And once again, thank you for inviting us to participate in this very important event. And thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dennis, for those sobering words, alarming in terms of the worldwide figures, but very encouraging in terms of the figures for Latin America and the Caribbean, of which we are a part, and therefore will continue to do the good work and to ensure that our commitment to ending child labor is carried through. Very ambitious target by 2025, but something attempted, something done will definitely earn a night's repose when we get there. I now turn my attention to Mariko Kagoshima, who is a country representative for UNICEF and one of our very able partners in this drive that we are going forward with. So may I now invite her to make her brief greetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Good morning, Honorable Minister Samuda, our strong ally, as always, and the team of the MLSS, our fellow colleague, Mr. Zulu. Nice to meet you virtually. and welcome to the region. You are fairly decent. And Mr. Wan, Mrs. David White, Ms. Graham McIntosh, and Ms. Corodos. Good morning. Today, UNICEF and the International Labour Organization are sharing new report about child labor that has some very sobering news, as you mentioned. The report warns that progress to end child labor has, as mentioned by our fellow colleague, Mr. Zulu, stalled for the first time in 20 years, reversing the previous downward trend that saw child labor fell by 94 million between 2000 and 2016. Another finding is that there has been a significant rise in the number of children aged between 5 to 11 years in child labor, who now account for just over half of the total global figure. The number of children aged 5 to 17 years in hazardous work, which is defined as a work that is likely to harm their health, safety, and moral, has also risen. Those are two very concerning trends for UNICEF. Here in Jamaica, the available data tells us that around 38,000 children aged 5 to 17 years are affected by child labor. This figure, however, is a conservative estimate because it excludes the so-called worst form of child labor other than hazardous work. These forms of child labor include child trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation, child slavery, and involvement of children in illicit activities. We also know that the rate of child labor in rural areas is twice that in urban areas. UNICEF is very concerned about these realities. What deepens our concern now is that the fact that COVID-19 pandemic makes children even more vulnerable to exploitation, including being forced into child labor. This is true across the world, but it is more challenging in countries like Jamaica, where schools have been closed for over a year and where many families have lost their jobs without being able to access social safety nets to support them. These factors put children at higher risk of child labor or working in exploitative conditions. Our global report with ILO makes it very clear, however, that a further increase of child labor is avoidable if certain measures are put in place. It emphasizes that the role of social protection is especially important, as Mr. Zulu also mentioned, to act as a lifeline for the families who most need it. It is critical for Jamaica to increase its social protection coverage and the amount of support as much as possible to offset the impact of COVID-19 on child labor. UNICEF has contributed to the Emergency Cash Transfer Program in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security as a response to COVID-19 crisis through PATH initiative. UNICEF supported PATH with Jamaican $40 million to provide top-up cash transfer payment for 2,700 families, helping them to cope with the crippling impact of COVID-19. And I would like to extend special thank you to Minister Samuda, who has been very open and supported to be able to transfer these funds, top-up funds, very quickly to the families that need it most. In continued partnership, UNICEF will collaborate with Ministry of Labor and Social Security to make social protection program to be more accessible and adaptable to the needs of families living in poverty. We know from modeling scenarios that increasing social protection coverage quickly can offset the impact of COVID-19 on child labor. We therefore urge government of Jamaica to consider what kinds of policy responses are needed to help prevent vulnerable households from having to resort to child labor as we continue to shield children from the worst impact of COVID-19. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so very much, Mariko. And we know that you are the kind of partner that is not afraid to put your money where your mouth is. And we are assured again by you that you will continue in this partnership with us, and that it will continue, and you will continue to support the effort by Jamaica as we move forward to eliminate child labor. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to be hearing from no stranger to us in public life, and that is Mr. David One, who plays a very important role of being the president of the Jamaica Employers Federation. And that organization is one of the tripartite partners here with us at the Ministry of Labor. So if it is egg, David is going to be in the red. David, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Moderator. Minister Samuda, our guests from the region, Mr. Zulu from the ILO office, Ms. Mariko Kagoshima from UNICEF, Helene Davis-White, President of JCTU, hardworking staff at the Ministry of Labor. Very good morning to everyone. All protocols observed. We are very pleased to participate in this function, the International Year Against Child Labor. We are very happy to be associated with this function, and we fully support the activities of the ministry and our multilateral partners in trying to reduce and to eliminate this phenomenon in Jamaica. The issue of child labor, not only is it intrinsically wrong for those children who suffer this wrong, there's also, on a broader scale, impact on our productive sector in Jamaica, on our members. For example, if a product arrives in Jamaica, which some element of child labor, chances are that will be a very below market price product, and it will undermine the efforts of our productive sector trying to compete. They may have to take actions which impact their workers and those children of those workers. So everything has a domino effect. So for the two reasons, it is intrinsically wrong. It also has an impact country and our productive sector. So we are in full support of the efforts we have heard about. I was very taken aback by the figure of 38,000 children I heard from Kagoshima. I've never heard a figure in Jamaica before, but even though it is small relative to a global sense, it is surprising nonetheless that it exists in such a large number. So we want to commend the ministry for putting on this forum, for bringing the recognition to this problem that is a global problem. And we will be in full support of the activities in any way we can to bring awareness and to help to reduce. Just want to close by saying the following, to reinforce the message of today's forum. For children to have the future they deserve, they need to be respected for what they learn and not what they earn. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish for us a very productive, informative forum today. And I thank you very much for the invitation. Mr. Moderator.
All right. Thank you so very much, David One, President of the Jamaica Employers Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, I should also have apologized for our own Sasha Dare Gordon, who is the Director of Child Labor here in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Sasha has not been well for the last few days, and as a result of that, her absence here today. We wish her a speedy recovery from that illness. We also have with us Helene Davis-White. Helene has been in the public domain for many, many years, and she has straddled many and varied activities in her leadership role. I now invite her to bring us greetings. Helene?
Morning, Mr. Moderator, my good friend, Mr. Vando Palmer, Minister Samuda, Ms. Corodas of the Ministry of Labor and other officers of the Ministry of Labor, Mr. Dennis Zulu of the ILO Caribbean Office, and Ms. Kagoshima of the UNICEF office here in the Caribbean. Good morning to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be bringing greetings on behalf of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions this morning at this launch of the International Year Against Child Labor. We have come not so far in 20 years, but when this issue first came to the fore in Jamaica, somewhere in 2001, 2002, many of us said we don't have child labor in Jamaica because we thought of child labor in terms of really the worst forms of child labor. But after the research was done, it was shown that we did in fact have instances of child labor in Jamaica, and some of which took place before our very own eyes without us actually understanding what it was, what it represented. Since that time, we have had the tripartite arrangements in order to ensure that we are able to combat child labor, and particularly the elimination of the worst forms of child labor. I believe are now entering another phase with this declaration of the year against child labor across the world. And what we expect and we hope will happen is that this year will provide the kind of publicity and attention to the issue that will move us further along the line in terms of being able to eliminate child labor and its worst forms within Jamaica. We have already been getting information that the pandemic has put more of our children at risk of being involved in child labor. And so we believe this is an opportune time to be able to begin the implementation of some of those actions that were identified coming out of the National Action Plan for Child Labor, which has been in force for some time. There are aspects that we need to strengthen and to provide the resources for the actions to be carried out. So we look forward to this year being a defining year in terms of us being able to implement those actions that were already agreed, and certainly also to review to make sure that the plan is keeping pace with what is happening in the general environment. So we wish for the officers of the Ministry of Labor, the members of the steering committee that has been established to deal with this issue of child labor, every success in this year and going forward. Thank you.
All right, there you have it from Helene Davis-White. Thank you so very much, Helene. Very sobering thoughts. Just to remind you that we are being carried live on PBCJ's YouTube platform, as well as that of the GIS and its Facebook. And of course, not to be outdone, our own Facebook and YouTube pages here at the Ministry of Labor. It's often said that children learn what they live. So children live with criticism, they will learn to condemn. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive. We are now going to be going into a brief overview of the CLRS model, which is the first to be implemented in Jamaica. I think it's going to be done this year, and this model really is one of the tools that is going to help us in our drive to eliminate child labor. So to provide us with a very brief overview of that, I now invite Ms. Aisha Graham McIntosh, a member of the committee, as well as a statistician from Statin. Aisha, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you for that. I note the emphasis on brief overview. Are you seeing my screen? I want to make sure that it's being shared.
I am seeing your screen. Yes.
We are. Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, and good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. So this overview, as indicated earlier, will be brief. I'll begin with a background to this. So the Jamaica National Youth Activities Survey 2016 was the product of a partnership between the Statistical Institute of Jamaica and the International Labour Organization. The project commenced in January 2016 and was fielded during the period May through to August. The sample size had 8,693 dwellings. From that 8,693 dwellings, there were 4,271 dwellings where we found the children aged 5 to 17, and of that number, 74.6% of the households that had children aged 5 to 17 years responded to the survey instrument. So the objectives of the survey was to collect comprehensive information on children's engagement in economic activities, improve information on working children, child labor, and hazardous work at the national and regional levels, strengthen the capacity of the government of Jamaica to conduct future data collection, research and analysis in the child labor area on a sustained basis. The information collected in the survey also is useful in monitoring SDG Target 8.7. Target 8.7 speaks to the immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, including recruitment and use of child soldiers, and by 2025 to end child labor in all its forms. So we asked, who do we classify really as children? So the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child and the ILO Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor designate individuals less than 18 years of age as children. So a child, for measurable purposes, we measured using children 5 to 17 years. And this child is considered to be working if he or she is engaged for at least 1 hour during the reference period in the production of economic goods and or services. So this is whether for pay or profit, or without pay in a family farm, business, or if he or she did not work, but had a job or business from which he or she was temporarily absent. So when we say child labor, what are we talking about? Child labor refers to work that is mentally, physically, socially, or morally dangerous and harmful to children and interferes with their schooling. So the child labor risk identification model is a tool that is useful to design and implement child labor prevention strategies with impact on a local level as a key instrument for use in the context of the agreed policy acceleration framework for the elimination and prevention of child labor. This model was developed by the International Labour Organization Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ILO-ECLAC. and is intended to, one, identify the geographical areas of Jamaica with a higher probability of child labor and estimate the weight of those risk indicators. The model facilitates determining which geographical areas and population groups prevention efforts must be focused and define which multi-sectoral actions are more relevant in breaking the child labor trajectory. The methodology elaborated by the ILO in partnership with ECLAC is done by examining statistical information available through surveys, censuses, and administrative records. Pilot applications of this model have been tested in 10 countries of the region, namely Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Jamaica, Mexico, and Peru. So how is this child labor risk identification model implemented? So first, we identify child labor related factors, and those become our variables of interest. Then from those variables, we developed a logistic regression, which is the elaboration of the logistic model. This model is then implemented through population censuses, which is a statistical procedure where we impose the survey findings on the census data to be able to have a representation at a national level. And then from there, we're able to develop territorial characterization, which in layman's term, we have maps where we can clearly visually see where these high concentrated areas are of focus. So in short, the logistic regression statistical model estimates the probability of child labor occurrence based on a set of variables that allows to predict if a child works or a child does not work. So the information sources that was used in Jamaica were the 2016 Jamaica Youth Activity Survey, the last census, which is the 2011 Population and Housing Census, and administrative records of ministries, departments, and agencies. The determinants used in the model for Jamaica were sex, age, place of residence classified as urban and rural, whether or not the children in the home had siblings who attended school, did not attend school. We also looked at the education level of the head of the household. We looked at the work situation of the head of the household, the industry as well in which the head of the household works. We looked at also the work situation of the spouse for the head of the household. The model estimate that we have currently at the county level, we can see where the model is showing that the high risk area for Jamaica is in Surrey. Now, Surrey is the county which includes the parishes Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Thomas, and Portland. And it is classified, as I said, as high risk at the parish level because this county has the parishes with the highest probability, estimated proportions of children who are exposed to child labor. And this is what we are able to represent from the model. So this map is showing it at the level of the counties. It is not at the granular level, which the model does allow for. So it can go down as far down as the constituency, where you can see how concentrated this is within the constituency. But this map for now is just showing an overview of what each county currently looks like. And from the darker hue of the color, we see where it is concentrated mainly in Surrey. So just to say that it is not surprising, as was shared by Mariko Kogoshima earlier, rural areas are twice that of urban areas, generally speaking. So hence the parishes such as Portland and St. Thomas would have driven that high concentration. So just as a validity check. So what is Jamaica's situation? So from the survey instrument, we see where nationally, we found that there was 8.1% of children and adolescents aged 5 to 17 years who participate in economic activities. And the model is showing that same probability. So we can see where that the results from the model are valid. So we can be able to comfortably use this model in our pursuit of eliminating child labor. Thank you. I am open to questions if there are any from the presentation.
All right, so we will take those questions, I think, at the end. But thank you so very much for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's always very important that the target audience, right, who are our children, be given an opportunity to express themselves. And this year, what we are going to be doing is allowing them to express themselves artistically. So there is definitely going to be an online poster competition. And I am now going to be asking none other than Ainka Perkins, one of the administrators in the child labor unit here at the Ministry of Labor, to give us a brief as to what that online poster competition will be this year.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you with a little bit of disturbance in the background. I'm sure you'll clean that up shortly. And we are now seeing you.
Okay. A quote from the great Nelson Mandela. Our children are our greatest treasure. They are our future. Those who abuse them tear at the fabric of our society and weaken our nation. With all protocols already being established, a pleasant good morning to all.
Good morning.
My task on today is to introduce you to our next big and exciting venture for this year. But first, I must say that last year we had our child labor essay competition and the response was overwhelming. So for this year, we're not expecting anything less. So let me introduce to all, but specifically to our children ages 5 to 17 years, our online poster competition. So the objective of this competition is to raise awareness, engage the children's interest surrounding the issue of child labor, while showing their creative skills and having fun in the same stead. So for the competition, we have 4 categories with varying sub-themes. So we have the first category of 5 to 7 years with the sub-theme Save the Child. For ages 8 to 10, their sub-theme would be Say No to Child Labor. For ages 11 to 13, their sub-theme, A Child is Meant to Learn, Not to Earn. For the 14 to 17 age group, their sub-theme is Jamaica, Free of Child Labor. Eligible entrants should have attained or reached the age requested as at July 31st, 2021. At the time that this competition is officially launched, all details will be on our website, the MLSS website, or social media platform. You can find us at Instagram at MLSSJA, Facebook at MLSS Jamaica, and on our Twitter page at JamaicaMLSS.com. We'll also be in the print media, and there you'll find full details of this online host a competition. All entries along with the other requirements should be sent to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security Public Relations Unit at PRUNIT, that's the PR unit, at mlss.gov.jm no later than July 16, 2021. An official entry form must be attached to each contest entry. Any submission without the required information will not be accepted. We'll have a panel of judges who will assess all entries, and these assessments will be based on the adherence to the themes that I had mentioned before for the various categories, on the originality and creativity and visual effectiveness. Not leaving out the public. The public will be given the opportunity from the 19th of July to the 26th of July, 2021, until 5 p.m. to vote for your favorite poster by logging onto our social media platforms that I had mentioned before. I must emphasize that popular votes do not determine the winners, and the judge's decision is final. The participants will be noted by August 16 to the 20th. And for the good work that we'll be getting from our children, there will be cash awards and other prizes for our first, second, and third place winners in each category. Our first place awardees will be featured in the Jamaica Gleaner, the Observer, and on our social media platforms. Children who are online, we know you've got it, so we're expecting you to bring it. And in closing, I quote, "We owe it to our children to give them a dignified and hopeful future." And to all of us, let us all act now to end child labor. Thank you.
All right, just had a little bit of technical challenge there, but we're over and I am back on. Thank you so very much, Ms. Perkins, for that brief overview of the online competition. We are expecting it to be very exciting. As you rightly said, the essay competition last year was very exciting, and we did have some very good essays, and I did remember that little man from St. Thomas, I think, right, who stood out among the giants of the competition last year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the point where we're going to be asking none other than our own minister, the Honorable Carl Samuda, to now bring you the keynote address for this launch, at the end of which he will declare Jamaica's year for the international year for the elimination of child labor launched, as well as the competition that will be online for those students 5 to 17 years. Minister Samuda, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bando, and to everyone present, I greet you well. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. It is indeed an honor to launch Jamaica's International Year to Eliminate Child Labor. Globally this year, governments are required to intensify all efforts to take a decisive and practical action to achieve Target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goal by 2030. 25. I saw where just yesterday, the International Labour Organization and the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, released the 2020 Global Estimates Report, which revealed what I regard as quite a stunning bit of data, where approximately 150 million children are engaged in child labor. But I just wouldn't mind if you indulge me a minute to comment on the report that was given in terms of the definition of child labor and the results of the survey taken in Jamaica, whereby in the county of Surrey, which is in the St. Thomas, primarily that area, where the incidence of child labor was highest. So I am led to believe that child labor is connected inextricably to the extent to which poverty exists in certain communities. Because in certain communities, and I know a bit about that particular part of the country, where economic activity is not as buoyant as in other areas, and the families are forced to encourage the children and to participate with them, especially in farming activities, which would be classified, strictly speaking, as child labor. But that's not a subject that I'm well versed in, and I leave that to the experts. I just thought I would comment on it as an observation made in the report earlier. I think that the children in hazardous work increased by some 6.5 million to approximately 79 million when compared to 2016, where the global estimate report was issued. And I must pause again to commend the team from Jamaica that from what was said, we really only started taking note of this data in 2016. And I think we have done extremely well in being able to provide us with information that will guide us in our strategy as we go forward to eliminate child labor. Evidently, the gains that were made between 2000 and 2016 have been reversed. And this is an excellent thing to have experienced, which leads towards the whole achieving of the Sustainable Development Goals. At this juncture, I want to express my gratitude to the ILO, especially, and UNICEF for providing this latest data and to reaffirm that Jamaica will ensure our children are protected. All during my interaction with the ILO and UNICEF teams, I found them extraordinarily committed and very supportive and a great partner to have in this effort. I also look forward to our renewed partnership as we continue to work to have a country that is free of child labor. Globally, countries have been battling the efforts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has had a tremendous impact on our abilities to cope with the hardship that has come with that particular pandemic. It has caused untold hardships on our Jamaican economy, businesses, families, and our most vulnerable, including our children. And if you are, as I am, involved directly with the situation at the community level, especially in the communities that are less fortunate, it is very heart-rending. And so any effort that can be made to improve the situation through efforts of UNICEF and ILO, along with our local team, would be, it's just, immeasurable. It's important to note that these figures have not taken into account, from what I can gather, the COVID-19 pandemic, which would suggest that the situation might even be worse than has been reported so far. The way in which we are accustomed to doing things have changed, obviously, and we have now transitioned into a new norm. For some, it has been dealt with, they have coped with it remarkably well. For others, it has been simply devastating. The world of work, school, the church, entertainment, and all other areas that we had so been accustomed to enjoying a certain lifestyle and so on, have changed. It has been, as I said, devastating on many societies. However, the advantage to it is that it has made it necessary for us to advance technology in a relatively short period of time. Every day we are seeing new and innovative techniques being applied to being able to survive and survive in atmosphere and areas that were hitherto not thought of. I'm speaking primarily at not being able to leave home, have restrictions on movement and so on. But notwithstanding that, through the use of technology and the introduction of new technology, we have been able to do the best under the circumstance. The march toward modernity has, by and large, negatively impacted, of course, mostly our children. The inability to access virtual classes during this period is definitely impeded by the lack of appropriate infrastructure. And the question is also to be considered that because the children have been forced to stay at home and to acquire their learning through the internet and so forth, it exposes them to risks of exploitation. I don't wish to delve too deeply into this, but I think everybody can understand what I mean when a child is left alone and adults who would otherwise be at work are now in the same house. And so it exposes the children to a certain increased level of risk. These are some of the devastating consequences of the COVID, and it obviously has a great and direct bearing on the question of child labor. The government recognizes that our children are at risk now more than ever and need to do everything to ensure that are protected. The government of Jamaica, led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, is working strategically and decisively to minimize the impact of the pandemic, especially, as I said earlier, when it deals with the question of child labor. The child labor risk identification model, which was developed by the International Labour Organization and the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, will be implemented this year. And that is a great thing to look forward to. This model provides the opportunity to take a proactive approach in addressing this critical issue. The model will be implemented in communities based on the finalization of the profiles and vulnerability maps that are being generated. And I can imagine the effort that goes into finalizing these particular things that will help us to measure the extent to which our populations are vulnerable and be able to act as a result of the findings. The success of this intervention requires an interministerial collaboration, and I want to emphasize this because that is a direct and deliberate strategy where one ministry, although we are the so-called parent ministry of this particular effort, one ministry alone will not be able to achieve the desired results within the time frame that has been identified. So we will need interministerial collaboration, and we will need a level of cooperation, in fact, right across the whole government structure. I speak confidently for my parliamentary colleagues because I know that they're extraordinarily committed to this, especially the Ministry of Gender and Women's Affairs. And they have committed to renew and strengthen our partnership in a united effort to eliminate the scourge of child labor. If I may for a moment address the situation with the children directly. I believe that the children of Jamaica, and I can only speak for those that I'm familiar with have shown an inherent sense of resilience and an ability to cope with the difficulties with which they have been confronted since last year due to the pandemic. But it has had its toll, and we are now going through, we are transitioning into a face-to-face relationship in the schools, and they have, to a great extent, readjusted and are in the process of readjusting. Some, the impact has been greater than on others. Some are anxious to go back, others are really, not terribly anxious and a little confused. But nonetheless, I think with the guidance of the parents and the teaching community and the general community, they are being encouraged to be strong and to face the realities with which we are all confronted. And most important, they are given a sense of support from the adult community across the country. That is what I have observed, and that is what I will continue to support, any effort to enable an interaction between the adults and the children, particularly those who have been forced to remain at home and try to make the best of a very bad situation. They have not been able to interact with their friends by and large. They've been stuck, and they're not being able to be physically active, which is something that you remove from a child can have its consequences, both immediate and in the future. The whole readjustment is going to require our effort, collaboration, and I'm hoping that the ILO and UNICEF will assist, as they have been in the past, to give an opportunity to these children to regain, those who have lost a bit of it, to regain the confidence, self-confidence that will be needed to guide them as they return to a state of normalcy. And of course, most of the infrastructural side of this is very challenging, because the country that we have here, Jamaica, has its challenges with the provision of connectivity for the internet services. I think that looking into the future, the challenges that we will face, not just what we are facing now, but what will eventually attend the whole system of development in Jamaica. We have to find the answer to connectivity across the length and breadth of the country, so that all children can have an equal opportunity and equal access to information in order to develop and to participate fully in the educational system. Not only for the educational system, but the question of establishing appropriate values and attitudes at the home. So we are really looking forward to the collaboration with the Ministry of Energy and Technology. And we believe that so far we have been working well together, but we can always get more help, and we will be working assiduously to connect with the Ministry of Education also to see in what way we can further this collaboration. This government is aware of your concerns, and we are making every effort to address them in the shortest possible time. Sometimes the children may get impatient because they hear their parents being a bit anxious because things don't flow as quickly as they would like. I just want to assure everybody that all that can be done is being done. They are committed, like you on this panel and others who spend most of their waking time thinking about the development of our children, the protection of our children, both physical and mental. So together, I'm absolutely certain that we will come through this, and we will not only be able to return to where we were, but we will expand in our scope and content of the work that is ahead of us. In February, I participated in the regional launch of the International Year to Eliminate Child Labor, hosted by ILO, and I'm hereby confirming that Jamaica will continue to work with national, regional, and international partners to accelerate measures to achieve target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goal, which speaks to the elimination of the scourge of child labor and in all of its forms by 2025. As the responsible minister, I call on the civil society group, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and every Jamaican to partner with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to join the campaign as Jamaica says no to child labor. This is a very important and a very pertinent slogan to adopt. Jamaica says no to child labor. It couldn't be more dramatically put. We appreciate the partnership and education, and I'm sure that we will achieve our vision to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. It is with a sense of deep commitment and pride, therefore, that I now declare Jamaica's International Year to Eliminate Child Labor, the Child Labor Risk Identification Model, and the online poster competition officially launched. I want to thank you all for being patient and to be, and the extent to which you have displayed that level of commitment and determination to partner in this very noble effort. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so very much, Minister Samuda, as he gave us a little peek into the policy direction of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security as it relates to the whole business of the elimination of child labor and protecting our children, the future of Jamaica. It was Keats who once said, "Think like a genius, but speak in the language of the people." And you just had it from Minister Carl Samuda. Very down to earth, very realistic, but at the same time, very astute and is in touch with what is happening on the ground. Minister, thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to ask Ms. Gillian Corodas, our Divisional Director of IR and Allied Services, to now bring the closing remarks. Gillian?
Thank you very much, Vando. And good morning, listeners. They say in Jamaica, we're the only ones that say all protocols observed. And I want to say that I acknowledge the salutations that have gone ahead. Mr. Dennis Zulu, Regional Director of the International Labour Organization, the ILO, Ms. Marika Kabashima, Country Director of UNICEF. On behalf of the government and people of Jamaica, we extend deepest appreciation for your continued work and cooperation in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in particular, Jamaica, as you provide technical and funding assistance for research and strategies to achieve the target of eliminating child labor by 2025. Your presence this morning is especially important as we launch activities for the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor in Jamaica. Your commitment and continued partnership on social protection and other strategies to protect the vulnerable households will contribute successfully to removing the conditions that facilitate and perpetuate child labor. We thank you for your continued assistance to Jamaica to prepare and promote decent work and economic growth. Our local partners, the Jamaica Employers Federation, represented by Mr. David Wan, and the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, represented by Mrs. Helene Davis-White, we are pleased to have your expressions of continued support in moving Jamaica forward in respect of decent work. Your efforts in assisting to eliminate child labor is and will ensure a stable labor market decent work, and growth and development of our island home, Jamaica. The Jamaica effort in the research, the child labor risk identification model, will drill down to the community level to identify geographical spread of child labor and identify the areas most susceptible to the spread of child labor. We thank the team from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, for its continued research that will allow the evidence-based planning as we seek to eliminate child labor by 2025. Today, we are especially grateful to you, Ms. Aisha McIntosh, and I will say she is a member of the National Steering Committee, for your presentation this morning that indicated that the County of Surrey has presented as a geographical area of national concern relating to child labor in Jamaica. We look forward to continued collaboration with your department and the information that will be shared locally and regionally from your research. The participation of children is extremely important, as we should not plan for them, but we should in fact plan with them. Ms. Ainka Perkins, we thank you and the Child Labor Unit for launching the 2021 competition that promotes child expressions as we seek to eliminate child labor and expand public knowledge on the worst forms of child labor and hazardous work. Minister, the Honorable Carl Samuda, we thank you for your personal support and action on behalf of the policymakers of Jamaica to ensure that our children are protected. Your reflection on the crisis at the community level as relates to vulnerable children suggests that you are personally moved and committed to taking appropriate action and expanding Jamaica's participation in regional initiatives to eliminate and reduce the likelihood of expansion of child labor. You spoke of children being victims of child labor. We recognize and thank you for calling on your parliamentary colleagues to join in eliminating the scourge of child labor. We extend special thanks to Ms. Marsha Natalie Martin for opening in prayer. As a praying country, you have helped to renew our faith and focus as we pursue multi-sectoral and community-level strategies to eliminate child labor. Special thanks to all ministries, departments, and agencies of the government of Jamaica and civil society organizations that presently serve the National Steering Committee for the Elimination of Child Labor. We thank the team of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, my colleagues, who through exceptional planning has made this launch possible and the activities that will follow. Special mention to Mrs. Sasha Dare Gordon and our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Colette Roberts Risden, for expanding work on eliminating child labor in Jamaica. Special thanks to the media for your broadcast, because it would certainly not be in the best interest if such information were not shared with the general public locally and internationally. Lastly, but absolutely significantly, you, our viewers, we thank you for being here with us and for joining as Jamaica says no to child labor. Thank you very much. And thank you to our moderator, Mr. Vando Palmer, Public Relations Director in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Thank you, Vando.
Thank you very much, Gillian. Well said. And all I can say is thank you. And thank you again to everyone for joining us. Let us all put hands and heart together in this effort to protect our children. If the children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If the children live with tolerance, they learn patience. If the children live with acceptance, certainly they learn to love. If the children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. If the children live with recognition, they learn generosity. If the children live with honesty, they learn truthfulness. If the children live with fairness, they learn justice. If the children live with kindness and consideration, they learn respect. And if children live with security, they learn to have faith in themselves and in those about them. And finally, if the children learn to live with friendliness, they learn that the world is a nice place in which to live. And as one of our Jamaican artists would have said, Jamaica, what a nice place to live. Let us make it a nice place to live for not just our children, but for all of us. I thank you. Do we have any questions for Minister or any of our panelists?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, question. The presenter who showed us the geographical maps, and that Surrey was the largest county impacted by child labor, especially Portland and St. Thomas. My question is, it seems like, in general, poverty level is something that drives this presence of child labor, because those two parishes, as I understand it, are some of the lowest average income in all of them. The question is, St. Mary also is a similar demographic and so on. I wonder why there wasn't any reason why that's not driving St. Mary stuck out to me. That's for the person who presented.
That's for Aisha?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Aisha, did you hear the question?
Yes, I believe I heard the question. In essence, you're saying that poverty would form like an underlying factor because it's innately built into the variables. And you're saying that you're wondering why is it that St. Mary did not present based on the map that was displayed.
That's exactly my question.
Am I correct? Am I understanding the question correctly?
That is my question. And maybe it is the presence of some tourism in that parish that brings up the average income. I don't know, but I know rural St. Mary is quite depressed.
I'm not certain if it's my. Because this, I am frozen. Hello, I'm not certain if you're hearing me because I'm not hearing anything.
Hearing you now.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, right? So I hope my understanding of the question was correct. In that light, I don't know if you recall, I mentioned that the map that was displayed, that is at the level, higher level. The maps that we're working on finalizing presents it at the constituency. There is an area within St. Mary that does present high risk of child labor. So at the more granular level, you get to see a more detailed outline of where presents as high risk areas versus low risk areas. And just to reiterate again, the map that was presented is at a higher level. It gets more granular as we go down for the purposes of targeting the efforts. So the more granular maps will in fact show that there is a very significant high risk area in the parish of St. Mary. So just to appease your concern. There was something also that I think you mentioned earlier, just in case if there's anyone else like you said that you had never heard the figure of child labor for Jamaica. Just to say that in the 2016 Jamaica Youth Activity Survey, it's in that report, and it is nationally it is 5.8% at that time. So just to note that that survey was done in 2016.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, Aisha. And if there be no further questions, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we have to say ta-ta and goodbye for now. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you very much.